All right, let's talk about recruitment. All right, so what are our objectives in recruitment? We have two key objectives when we are recruiting people for our positions in our organizations. The first one is to attract a large pool of qualified applicants to the jobs that we're advertising. So that's our kind of our main recruitment goal, is that we want to get as many qualified people to apply for our job as possible. A related objective is to discourage anyone who's unqualified from applying. We want to discourage everyone else from applying. If we can get the qualified people to self-select into our recruitment process and the unqualified people to self-select out, we're way ahead on this game. Because part of the challenge of recruitment is wading through all of the applications and trying to distinguish between people who are likely to be a good fit for the job and those that are not. So we want to forecast information in our job advertisements that help people realize whether or not they're likely to be a good fit for that job, both in terms of knowledge, skills, and abilities, but also whether they're likely to be a good fit because of the company's culture or basic needs that we have for that position. Other important things we need to consider is we want to encourage applications from qualified applicants who have diverse backgrounds in terms of experience and demographics, etc. So we want them to be very diverse pool of candidates. That helps us to meet our Title VII goals. We want to attract qualified applicants who are going to fit within the organization's culture, right? There are cultures, sometimes the job might be the same, but the culture is in the organization is so different that sometimes a person might be very successful and in another organization they would not be successful. So we want to be able to kind of forecast or give information about what that company's culture looks like so that individuals who are going to fit well within it can self-select in, and those who can't or won't likely fit within it can self-select out. We should discourage applications from individuals who will not fit within our culture, regardless of their qualifications, because they would be selection failures. They might be the perfect fit on paper for the job, but if they're not likely to be a good fit for the team they're going to work with, or for the organizational culture that they're going to work with, or what have you, we don't want them or us to waste our time with going through a selection process only to have them quit the job relatively soon after taking it. So we need to forecast information about the job and about the culture, etc., so that they know whether or not this is going to be a good fit for them. And obviously, we want to avoid any sort of intentional or unintentional discrimination against our protected classes. Recruitment is a two-way process, and this is very important to remember because organizations are certainly attempting to attract prospective qualified employees, but applicants are evaluating prospective employers, and this is true particularly for younger generations. They care more about picking the type of employer that they're going to work for, and so we can't just assume that because we have a job and are willing to pay people that they should feel privileged to come work for us. We need to sell our job and our organization so that we can attract the quality applicants. So we need to give information about the size and the presence and of the organization and its industry, its profitability, its reputation, its culture, its sustainability, its its carbon footprint, whatever we think is going to be important or relevant to the potential applicants. Okay, we want to make sure we sell, but that we don't oversell our job or our organization, because we may be able to lure people into a position in our organization during the selection process, but eventually they're going to figure out the truth. And the last thing we want to do is have them think that we've lied to them. And so we need to be sure that we are selling our company, selling our job, selling the organization, but only giving truthful information. We want to give balanced information as well. So we want to balance the good with the bad. We don't want to air all of the dirty laundry of the organization, but we also want to realize and credit the individuals with the fact that they will know soon enough once they come on board, and we don't want to have to keep replacing people who aren't a good fit. So for example, statements like, this is a great place to work, or the position is challenging and offers tremendous potential for advancement, is good. Those are great statements if they're true. But if not, you may actually have a group of very disgruntled former employees who spread the word. A recent survey of graduate management alumni found that more than half of the sample said that psychological contracts and obligations or promises made during the recruitment process were broken by the employer, leading to turnover or plans to leave. And again, our goal in recruitment is not to have people who want to leave our organization ultimately. We want to hire and then keep excellent contributors to our organization. It's important to remember as well that the people that you put in place to do the recruitment and the interviewing influences the type of applicants that you have. The recruiter affects the nature of both the job and the applicants that are generated. So to be successful and effective, recruiters should be perceived by the applicant as being warm and enthusiastic, informative, knowledgeable about the position, the department, the organization, the key players, and able to provide a highly realistic message about the nature of the job and the organization. If they're not seen as being able to do these things, they're not likely to be successful recruiters. Recruiters should provide timely feedback to applicants about the selection process. They should team up with subject matter experts or other job incumbents during the recruitment process to help enhance their own credibility. Because if they are strictly from HR and are hiring individuals who are more technical roles, the individuals that they're recruiting will want to see that there are individuals who they would be working with or have actually done the jobs that they're looking for that are part of the selection process as well. It's important that recruiters provide timely feedback to applicants about where they are in the selection process. In many industries and occupations, you can't let more than a few days go by without having some interaction with applicants, particularly ones that we care about keeping in the interview process. The longer your interview process takes, the more likely that you will lose really good, potential employees. So provide timely feedback and offer realistic job previews whenever possible. Realistic job previews are detailed scenarios or information where the applicant gets to see what the job really is like. And it gives a realistic impression of both the positive and the potential negatives of the job. So an example of a realistic job preview might be for a law enforcement officer doing a ride-along for a shift that they would likely be working, so that they would, as part of the recruitment process, actually get to ride along with an officer on a shift like they might actually work. And they can see, gosh, there's a lot of periods of dead time that are punctuated with short and sometimes few and far between incidences of excitement, but then more dead time, more excitement, etc. So you want them to be able to see that and get a feel for it to know whether they're likely to be engaged in that position for the long run. They will, use of realistic job previews will reduce the number of people who will accept job offers when they're extended, but it will increase the number of people who actually stay on the job after they get it because they accepted the job even though they knew the downsides of it. All right, where can we find applicants? One place we can find applicants is from people within our organization, and another place is outside. So we have internal recruiting and external recruiting. Internal recruiting is hiring people who already work for us, okay? We might be doing this through transfers or promotions, for example. An advantage of internal recruiting is that we have a good assessment of the candidates because we've already seen them performing that job or performing in our organization. So we're not trying to predict their job performance with a variety of selection tools like interviews and job knowledge tests. We actually know something about their performance because they've been doing it for us already. It also, in some ways, can reduce training time because the individual already knows how to get things done within an organization, how the inner workings of the organization work. It can be fast and cheap and motivate employees because they know that there's a possibility for transfers and promotions. But obviously, the disadvantages are you're creating vacancies. If you hire from within, you may have filled one job, but now you've created a vacancy in another job. There may not be enough diversity in your current organization to be able to promote diversity just from within. So it can have the effect of stifling diversity of your workforce. And also, you may not have the type of person who would be the best fit for that job currently working for you. So going outside might be the better place to get a qualified applicant. External recruiting is pulling people from outside your organization. This increases the diversity of your workforce. It facilitates the organization to grow because you're not pulling from one position to fill another position, then having a vacancy. It's actually increasing the number of employees you have. It can shorten training time in that you can hire people who already have the skill set you need without having to send them to training to be able to learn how to do a new job. So, but they will still need to learn how to work within that organization. And because you are bringing in fresh blood, so to speak, you can promote new and novel problem solving. Disadvantages are it's more expensive, it takes longer, you have to collect data that you're going to use to predict potential performance, but that data is less reliable than actually having that person working for you. And it can reduce your opportunities to hire from within, and not hiring from within or promoting from within means that some candidates or applicants will feel as though they don't have an opportunity to be promoted in their current jobs. So here are some sources, places that you can get people both internally and externally. Internal sources, you can have a job posting and a job posting internally means that you advertise within the organization, hey, we have a new job come available. Anybody who currently works for us gets first dibs. That's a job posting system. A job bidding system is very similar, where you ask people what are their career goals and what would be their growth jobs they'd like to see, and have them indicate that. And when those jobs come available, you have a ready list of individuals who are interested in doing that job. You can have employee referrals. You can use skill inventories, which is a list within the organization of what knowledge, skills, abilities, certifications, etc. everybody has and what their interests are. And that way, if you have that sort of a skill inventory in place, it should be fairly easy to find somebody who would be a good fit within your organization for a future job. And then you also have job rotation. And the nice thing about job rotation is that you can cross-train your employees so that they learn how to do a number of different jobs within the organization. And it also can reduce boredom, especially if those jobs, the jobs they're rotating among, don't change a whole lot. Giving them, mixing it up for them can help keep sustain motivation over time. External sources include walk-ins and unsolicited files, applications. There's some evidence to suggest that people who are walk-in applicants may be a really good bet for your organization, because there may be something about the take chargeness that person has, the ingenuity that person has, the outgoingness that they have to be willing to walk in unsolicited and apply for a job. So they're worth taking a look at and worth having a way of collecting applications from walk-in applicants. Referrals can be a great way of getting information about potential applicants, because typically we find that people who refer their friends or family members are only going to do so if they think that person will reflect well upon them. So you're likely to get individuals who are likely to be good performers in the job. Obviously, you can advertise in newspapers or magazines or online. You should look in employment agencies, because anyone who's receiving unemployment must be registered with the local employment office. So you have a ready-made group of individuals who are actively looking for work. You can use recruiters, whether they be a retained or contingency firm. You can use college recruiting, and you can offer internships. And a nice thing about internships is that you get to sort of test drive that employee before they actually come to work for you. So you can collect more organization relevant performance information about them before you consider them for a permanent position. Okay, for small business owners or for organizations where the resources for recruitment are somewhat limited, you might want to consider the following. First, if you're going to be hiring a senior level or a very infrequently filled position, it might actually be more cost effective for you to outsource that to a headhunter or a search firm than it would be for you to try to source those types of applicants in-house. You would probably have access to a less broad or less diverse group of potential applicants, and it would probably take longer to generate a group of applicants than if you were to use a headhunter or a search firm. So it may seem on the surface more expensive to use the headhunter, but it might actually in the long run be more cost effective and more efficient. There tend to be two types of contracts that you can use when working with headhunters. One is a contingency contract and one is a retained contract. A contingency contract essentially states that you can work on recruitment for me, but we will only pay you when we hire somebody. And then typically, when they hire one of your applicants, the recruiter makes, on a contingency contract, makes a percentage of that person's total salary for the first year. A retained contract is where the organization hires the recruiter and they're being paid a percentage of what that starting salary would be, whether or not they actually hire one of those individuals. Obviously, don't use a retained firm unless they have a lot of references to show that they're really good at what they're doing and that they have a lot of contacts. Things you should think about: know what you want and be prepared to explain it in detail. Have done a solid job analysis before you try to hire a headhunter, because they will not know the softer side of the job analysis. They can get the job analysis from you in terms of job description and specification, but they're not going to know the ins and outs of what it's like working for your organization and what the culture is of the team and the department and the organization and the supervisor, etc., that they're going to work with. So be prepared to explain in detail what it is you want. Interview the recruiter, because they're going to impact the quality of the search. Ensure that they have appropriate contacts and experience relevant to that type of search. Definitely get an agreement in writing and know the costs up front. And do your own reference checking, because even if you have outsourced the selection process to a headhunter, if they drop the ball in the reference checking process, you can be held liable if somebody ends up getting hurt or deceived or something down the road. So definitely do your own reference checking. Research about recruitment suggests: 1, you should use employee referrals because they result in employees with lower turnover and better performance over time. You should provide information to applicants that is going to be important to them so they can make decisions early on in the selection process. That it would include location, diversity of the organization, and salary. Understand that the image of your organization influences the applicants, and ensure all communications provide a positive image of the organization as a place to work. You'll want to provide applicants with a realistic picture of the job and the organization, not just the best parts of it, but also the downsides, because they will eventually learn those downsides, and if they're deal breakers for them, you'd rather know that before you extend them a job offer than after. And make sure that whoever you have in contact with applicants should be chosen for their interpersonal skill set, their ability to work with others, because the recruiter is going to have a huge impact on the extent to which the search process is successful.